I'm Brittany, 30, female. I live in a quiet suburban town where the biggest news is usually the high school football team's latest win. For the past 6 years, my life with my husband, Alex, has been just as predictable, built around our jobs, our home, and the future we were supposedly planning together. I work as a court reporter, a job that has trained me to listen, to notice the smallest details, and to understand that truth is always found in the record. I thought I had the perfect record of our life, but I was wrong. It turns out the most important document of all had been forged, and the man I shared my bed with was a master of deception. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Our house was Alex's pride and joy. It was a beautiful two-story colonial with a wraparound porch and a backyard big enough for the golden retriever we planned on getting one day. Alex, an IT project manager, was obsessed with the idea of it. He'd found the listing, negotiated the price, and handled all the paperwork. At the time, I saw it as him being proactive and caring. I was swamped with a high-profile case, working late hours transcribing testimonies, so I was grateful he took the lead. "Just tell me where to sign, babe," I'd said, trusting him completely. That was my first mistake. Our life looked perfect from the outside. We hosted barbecues in the summer, and our neighbors would comment on how we were the perfect couple. Alex was charming and organized. I was quiet and steady. He was the charismatic frontman. I was the reliable stage manager, making sure everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. We complemented each other, or so I thought. In reality, our dynamic had become a slow-moving imbalance of power. Alex made most of the major decisions, from what car we bought to where we invested our savings. He would present his research so thoroughly that arguing seemed pointless. "I've run the numbers, Britt," he'd say, tapping a spreadsheet. "This is the most logical move." I, a person who deals in facts and evidence, respected his data-driven approach. I didn't see it as control. I saw it as efficiency. The cracks, however, were there if I had been willing to look. There were small things. He would subtly correct me in front of friends, framing it as a joke. If I shared a success at work, he'd find a way to pivot the conversation back to his own latest project, which was always bigger, more complex, more important. His compliments always had a slight edge to them. "You look great in that dress, Brittany. It's amazing how you can pull off that color." It was a compliment and a subtle dig all in one, designed to keep me slightly off balance. I ignored these moments, burying the unease they caused. I told myself I was being too sensitive. After all, we had our beautiful house, our stable jobs, and our 5-year plan. What was there to complain about? My best friend, Jessica, saw it differently. A paralegal in family law, she was trained to spot red flags in relationships. "Does he ever just listen to you?" She asked me once over coffee, after I'd recounted another story of Alex steamrolling, one of my ideas for a vacation. I defended him, of course. "He's just practical, Jess. He thinks things through." She dropped it, but the look on her face stayed with me. It was a mixture of pity and concern. The house was in both of our names, a fact that gave me a sense of security. It was our biggest asset, the cornerstone of our shared life. I had contributed a significant portion of my savings to the down payment, a fact Alex conveniently forgot when he told people the story of how he bought us our dream home. The mortgage payments were automatically debited from our joint account, into which both our salaries were deposited. It was a seamless, modern partnership, or so the paperwork suggested. As a court reporter, I believed in the power of the official record. The deed said Brittany and Alex. The bank statements showed our shared contributions. The facts were on my side, but I was about to learn a terrifying lesson. Facts can be manipulated, and the record can be falsified by the person you trust the most. The dream he had so carefully constructed was, in reality, a meticulously planned trap, and it was about to be sprung. The trap was sprung on Alex's 32nd birthday. We were hosting a party in our backyard, the one with the perfect lawn he was so proud of. The air was warm, fairy lights twinkled above us, and about 30 of our friends and colleagues were laughing and drinking. I'd spent days planning it, wanting everything to be perfect. I'd hired caterers, chosen his favorite craft beer, and baked a ridiculously complicated cake from scratch. I was playing the part of the devoted wife, still oblivious to the fact that I was hosting a celebration for my own downfall. The evening was going well. Alex was in his element, holding court by the grill, telling a story about a difficult project at work that he, naturally, had saved at the last minute. His best friend, Ryan, a financial advisor who always seemed a little too slick, was laughing loudly at all the right moments. I was circulating, making sure everyone had a drink, feeling that familiar role of being the support system, the invisible engine keeping the party running. Around 10 p.m., Ryan gathered everyone for a toast. He raised his glass and gave a glowing speech about Alex being the most driven and intelligent guy he knew. Then he turned the floor over to me. And now, a few words from the wonderful woman who makes it all possible, Brittany. I smiled, picked up my champagne flute, and walked to the center of the patio. I'm not a natural public speaker, but I had prepared something simple and heartfelt. I started by talking about how proud I was of him. Then, wanting to add a bit of levity, I decided to tell a light-hearted, self-deprecating story. As most of you know, Alex is the planner in our relationship. I began with a chuckle. He handles the finances, the investments, the big decisions, while I handle the important stuff like making sure we have matching towels and remembering to feed the ficus plant in the corner. A few people laughed. I continued. Just the other day, I tried to make a suggestion about our mortgage. I'd read an article about refinancing, and I came to him with my little printout, feeling very proud. He looked at my single sheet of paper, then turned his monitor around to show me a 50-page spreadsheet he had already created, complete with color-coded charts and projected amortization schedules. He gently patted my head and said, "That's cute, Britt, but I think I've got it covered." I intended it as a funny anecdote about our dynamic, his obsessive planning versus my more relaxed approach. I thought it made me sound endearingly clueless and him sound impressively thorough. I was, in a way, mocking myself to praise him, but I misread the room. More importantly, I misread my husband. As I finished the story, the laughter from our friends was warm. But Alex's face was stone. He wasn't smiling. His eyes were cold, and a muscle in his jaw was twitching. I saw Ryan shoot him a quick, concerned look. The atmosphere shifted instantly. I faltered, my smile fading. "So anyway," I stammered, trying to recover. "What I mean to say is, he's the best man I know. Happy birthday, Alex. I love you." I raised my glass. There was a hesitant chorus of happy birthday from our guests. Alex forced a tight, thin smile. He walked over to me, and instead of kissing me, he leaned in close to my ear. His voice was a low, menacing whisper that no one else could hear. "Don't you ever make me look like a fool in front of our friends again. You have no idea what you're talking about. Stay in your lane." The shock was like a physical blow. I felt the blood drain from my face. He pulled back, his public smile perfectly in place, and clinked his glass against mine. He then turned to the crowd and said, "Thank you, honey, for that revealing story." The emphasis on revealing was a clear message meant only for me. The rest of the party passed in a blur. I went through the motions, cutting the cake, accepting compliments on the food, but my mind was replaying his words over and over. Stay in your lane. It wasn't just about the toast. It was a warning. The story I had told, meant to be a harmless joke, had exposed a truth he wanted to keep hidden, his absolute need for control. I hadn't made him look like a fool. I had made him look like a condescending husband, and in doing so, I had revealed that I was, perhaps, not as oblivious as he thought. That night, as I lay in bed next to a man who felt like a stranger, I knew something had been irrevocably broken. I just didn't realize he had already planned his revenge. The week after the party was chillingly quiet. Alex wasn't overtly angry. He was something far worse, detached. He moved through our home with a cool, polite distance, as if I were a roommate he barely knew. My attempts at conversation were met with one-word answers. My apologies for the toast were brushed aside with a dismissive, "It's fine, Brittany. Forget about it." But we both knew it wasn't fine. The man who used to text me throughout the day went silent. The easy physical affection we shared vanished completely. He started working late, several nights in a row, coming home long after I was in bed. I felt a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. This wasn't just a prolonged sulk, it was a strategic withdrawal. It felt like a prelude to something, a calculated campaign of silence designed to punish me. I spent my days at the courthouse, transcribing hearings, my mind drifting, trying to make sense of his reaction. I had spent years listening to testimony, documenting disputes, and I knew that people's actions often concealed deeper motives. What was Alex's motive? The severity of his response felt entirely out of proportion to my clumsy toast. My anxiety finally pushed me to do something I hadn't done in years, look through our financial documents by myself. Alex kept everything in a locked filing cabinet in his home office. He'd always told me it was for security and organization. and I'd never questioned it. That Friday, while he was supposedly at a late meeting, I found the key he kept hidden in a book on his shelf. A book on corporate strategy, ironically. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the drawer labeled House. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe evidence of a secret credit card or some other minor financial infidelity. I pulled out the thick folder containing the closing documents from when we bought the house 3 years ago. I sifted through the title insurance, the inspection reports, the deed. Everything seemed to be in order. Both our names were on everything. Then I found a more recent folder. It was labeled HELOC, Home Equity Line of Credit. I frowned. I didn't remember us ever discussing opening a line of credit against the house. I opened it and found an application form dated just 6 months prior. It was for a substantial amount, $50,000. All the information was correct, our address, our incomes, our social security numbers. And then I saw the signatures at the bottom. Alex's was there, bold and familiar, and next to it was mine, or a clumsy, unconvincing imitation of it. I stared at the paper, my heart pounding in my ears. It wasn't my signature. The slant was wrong, the loop on the B was too round, and the final Y was cramped and awkward. It was a forgery, and not a very good one. A cold wave of nausea washed over me. I felt my professional and personal worlds collide in the worst possible way. As a court reporter, I am an officer of the court. My entire career is built on the sanctity of the official record, on the truthfulness of sworn statements, and the validity of signatures on legal documents. To see my own name forged on a financial instrument against our shared home felt like a profound violation. I quickly dug deeper. Stuffed at the back of the folder was a bank statement for a savings account I didn't recognize. It was in Alex's name only. The statement showed a single deposit 6 months ago for $50,000 and a series of subsequent withdrawals, leaving a current balance of just under $5,000. He had taken out a loan against our house, forged my signature to do it, and hidden the money in a private account. The pieces started to click into place. His obsessive control over the finances wasn't about being practical. It was about creating a system where I wouldn't look, where I wouldn't question anything, giving him the freedom to act unilaterally. The birthday party wasn't the cause of his anger, it was the trigger. My toast, my innocent little story about him being in charge of the spreadsheets, had threatened his illusion of control. I had, without realizing it, held up a mirror to his manipulative behavior in public. His disproportionate rage and silent treatment weren't about a bruised ego. It was the panic of a con man who was afraid his mark was finally wising up. He had already laid the groundwork to financially cripple me, and he was terrified that I was about to discover it. And he was right. The forgery was the first thread. Now I had to pull it and see how much of our life unraveled. The next morning, I called Jessica. I met her at a small cafe far from our neighborhood, my hands shaking as I laid the forged HELOC application on the table between us. Jessica, ever the professional, didn't gasp or offer immediate sympathy. She picked up the document, her paralegal eyes scanning it with intense focus. She looked at the signature, then up at me. "This isn't yours," she said. It wasn't a question, no, I whispered, "and there's a secret bank account with the money in it, or what's left of it." Her expression hardened. "Okay, Brittany, this is bad. This is fraud. We need to be smart about this. Don't confront him. Don't let him know you know anything. We need more information. We need to build a case just like you would for court." Her calm, methodical approach was exactly what I needed. It pulled me out of my emotional tailspin and into my professional comfort zone. I was no longer a betrayed wife. I was an investigator. My job was to observe and record, and that's precisely what I would do. Jessica gave me a list of instructions. First, we needed to know the full extent of his actions. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was the quiet, efficient court reporter. At home, I was the subdued wife playing my part, pretending to be sad and confused about Alex's emotional distance, which gave me the perfect cover to snoop. He saw my quietness as submission, proof his punishment was working. He had no idea I was gathering an arsenal of evidence against him. Jessica used her access to legal search databases to run a comprehensive check on Alex and our property. The first bombshell dropped a few days later. "Britt," she said over the phone, her voice tight. "He refinanced the original mortgage a year ago." "What? I would have had to sign something." "You did, apparently," she said grimly. "He cashed out a significant amount of equity during the refi, and it looks like that's when he had the title changed. My blood ran cold. Changed how? He moved the property into a revocable He moved the property into a revocable trust, a trust that he is the sole trustee of. I felt like I couldn't breathe. How is that possible? My name was on the deed. He would have needed a quitclaim deed from you, signing over your interest in the property to the trust. Jessica explained. He would have filed it with the county recorder's office. I'm betting your signature is on that, too. And it was? Jessica pulled a copy of the document. There it was again, that same clumsy, fraudulent imitation of my name, signing away my rights to my own home. My portion of the down payment, the years of my salary that had gone into the mortgage, all of it gone with a flick of a pen. This wasn't a recent act of revenge for the birthday party. This had been in the works for over a year. Alex had been systematically stripping me of my assets while smiling at me over dinner. The birthday toast was just the moment I accidentally stumbled upon the truth. The paper trail of lies was longer and more tangled than I could have imagined. We found credit cards opened in my name that I knew nothing about, with small, regular charges for things like gas and groceries, all paid on time from our joint account to keep them from raising red flags. He was building a credit history on these fraudulent cards. For what purpose we didn't yet know. We found statements from a brokerage account, also in his name only, funded by the money from the refinance. He was playing the market with my money. His friend, Ryan, the financial advisor, was involved. Several of the accounts were managed through his firm. Ryan's enthusiastic toast at the party now seemed sinister. He wasn't just Alex's friend, he was an accomplice, helping him structure this grand betrayal. I meticulously copied every document, the forged HELOC, the fraudulent quitclaim deed, the secret bank and brokerage statements, the credit card applications. I documented everything with the dispassionate precision of a court reporter preparing an exhibit list. Each piece of paper was a nail in the coffin of my marriage. The grief was immense, but it was overshadowed by a cold, rising fury. Alex thought I was clueless. He thought his 50-page spreadsheets made him a genius and me an idiot. He had underestimated me. He had forgotten what I do for a living. I listen, I record, and I preserve the truth. And now, I was going to present it. With a mountain of evidence, my first instinct was to confront Alex, to throw the stack of forged documents in his face and watch his perfect, controlled world crumble. But Jessica stopped me. No, Britt, a cornered animal is dangerous. He'll lie. He'll destroy evidence. He'll try to manipulate you. We can't give him that chance. We're not just going to confront him. We're going to corner him with the law. Jessica introduced me to a sharp, no-nonsense divorce attorney named Marcus Hayes. He was in his 50s with a reputation for being a shark. When I laid out my file on his conference table, he didn't even flinch. He reviewed each document with a practiced eye. After 10 minutes of silence, he looked up at me, a grim smile on his face. Well, M.S. Peterson. He said, calling me by my maiden name, your husband is both arrogant and sloppy. That's a wonderful combination for our side. His forgeries are amateurish, and the paper trail is a highway. This is not just a divorce case. This is criminal. The word criminal hung in the air. Forgery, wire fraud, mail fraud, the reality of what Alex had done. The sheer illegality of it crashed down on me. Marcus, Jessica, and I spent the next week crafting a strategy. It was a multi-pronged attack. The goal wasn't just to divorce him, but to reverse every fraudulent transaction and ensure he faced the consequences of his actions. Marcus was clear. The house was the primary battleground. He put the house in a revocable trust where he is the trustee. Marcus explained. He thinks that protects it. He thinks he can just kick you out, but the trust was funded fraudulently using a forged quitclaim deed. We can petition the court to invalidate the deed, dissolve the trust, and revert the title back to its original state, joint tenancy. Our plan was to serve him with divorce papers and a summons for a civil suit simultaneously. The suit would allege fraud and demand a full forensic accounting of all our assets. Crucially, we would also file for an immediate temporary restraining order and a court order to freeze all his known assets, including the secret accounts. We need to serve him at a time and place where he has no room to run or hide evidence, Marcus advised. Not at home, where he can lock himself in his office and start shredding, and not at his work, where he could cause a scene and claim victimhood. We need a neutral, controlled environment. An idea began to form in my mind, a moment of perfect, poetic justice. I know the place, I said. The next step was to set the trap. I had to continue playing the part of the sad, defeated wife for a little longer. That evening, I approached Alex with a carefully rehearsed speech. I told him I knew we'd been distant since his birthday and that I was sorry for my part in it. I suggested we go to marriage counseling. As I expected, he scoffed at the idea. Counseling? Brit, I don't think we need a stranger to tell us what's wrong. Maybe we just need some space. It was the opening I needed. You're right, I said, feigning resignation. Maybe we do, but there are things we need to discuss. The house, our finances. We need to figure out how to separate things fairly if that's the path we're on. Can we meet next week with a mediator, just to talk things through civilly? I saw a flicker of triumph in his eyes. He thought I was surrendering. He believed I was walking into a negotiation with no knowledge of his crimes, ready to accept whatever crumbs he offered me from the table he had stolen. He was so confident in his own brilliance. I know a great financial advisor who could help mediate. He offered, his voice smooth as silk, my friend Ryan. I almost laughed. It was more perfect than I could have planned. That's a great idea, Alex, I said, my voice soft and agreeable. Let's meet at his office. We can sign whatever we need to write there and get it over with. He agreed immediately. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday at Ryan's downtown office. He thought he was walking into a meeting where he would finalize his victory. He had no idea he was walking into a legal ambush that I had orchestrated, using my knowledge of procedure and my unique understanding of how to build an unshakable record. He was about to learn the difference between a 50-page spreadsheet and a legally binding court order. The conference room at Ryan's firm was the picture of corporate success: glass walls, a polished mahogany table, and a panoramic view of the city skyline. It was designed to make people feel small and intimidated. But as I sat there, I felt a calm I hadn't experienced in weeks. Jessica was with me, ostensibly as my supportive friend. Alex and Ryan sat opposite us, both wearing smug, confident expressions. Alex had a leather-bound folder in front of him, no doubt containing his own version of a settlement offer. "Brittany, thanks for coming." Alex began, taking charge immediately. "I'm glad we can handle this like adults. Ryan has helped me draw up some preliminary paperwork to outline a separation of assets. I think you'll find it's very fair." He slid the folder across the table. I didn't even open it. "Actually, Alex," I said, my voice steady and clear, "I brought my own paperwork." On cue, the conference room door opened. My attorney, me.He, walked in, followed by a professional process server. Ryan and Alex looked up, their smiles instantly vanishing. Confusion, then alarm, flickered across Alex's face. "Who are these people?" Alex demanded, his voice sharp. "This is my attorney, me.He," I replied calmly. "And this gentleman has some documents for you, and for you too, Ryan." The process server stepped forward and placed a thick envelope in front of Alex, and another in front of a stunned Ryan. "Alex Peterson, you have been served with a summons and complaint for dissolution of marriage and a civil complaint for fraud. Ryan Miller, you have been served with a subpoena for records and testimony in the same civil suit." Alex tore open the envelope, his hands shaking. He scanned the first page, his face turning pale. He looked from the document to me, his eyes wide with disbelief and fury. "What is this? Fraud? What are you talking about?" Marcus stepped forward and placed his briefcase on the table. "Your husband seems confused, Ms. Peterson. Perhaps you should clarify." I leaned forward, my gaze locked on Alex. "I'm talking about the home equity line of credit for $50,000 you took out against our house 6 months ago, using a forged signature. I'm talking about the fraudulent quitclaim deed you filed a year ago to move our home into a trust you control, also with a forged signature. I'm talking about the credit cards you opened in my name and the brokerage account you funded with the equity you stole from our home." For every claim I made, Marcus pulled a document from his briefcase and laid it on the table. A copy of the HELOC application with my forged signature circled in red. A copy of the quitclaim deed. Statements from the secret bank account. I had built a perfect record. Ryan looked like he was going to be sick. He stared at Alex, his bravado gone. "Alex, what is she talking about? I didn't know about any forgeries." "Shut up, Ryan," Alex hissed, then turned back to me. "You did this. You went behind my back." The irony was so staggering it was almost funny. "Behind your back?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "You have spent years building a secret financial life based on lies and theft. You thought I was too stupid to notice. You mocked me at your birthday party for daring to have an opinion on our finances. You told me to stay in my lane. Well, this is my lane, Alex, the truth, the official record." "Something you know nothing about." Marcus took over. "Mr. Peterson, we have also filed an ex parte motion, which was granted this morning. All of your assets, every bank account, including the ones you've hidden, and the brokerage account managed by Mr. Miller's firm are frozen, pending a forensic audit. A temporary restraining order has been issued, requiring you to vacate the marital home by 5 p.m. today. You will be allowed to collect your personal belongings under the supervision of a sheriff's deputy. The color drained completely from Alex's face. The house was a symbol of power, of success. Losing it was the one thing he couldn't stand. You can't kick me out of my own house, as he sputtered. It's not your house, Alex, I said, standing up. It was our house, and you tried to steal it. You built a house of cards on a foundation of lies, and it just collapsed. He stared at me, his expression a mixture of hatred and shock. He saw me, truly saw me, for the first time in years. I wasn't the quiet, agreeable wife. I was the court reporter who had recorded his every crime and was now reading it back to him as an indictment. We walked out of the conference room, leaving him and Ryan sitting in stunned silence amidst the damning paperwork. The game was over. He had played, and he had lost. The legal battle was messy, but swift. Faced with irrefutable evidence of felony, level fraud, Alex had no choice but to fold. His arrogance crumbled under the weight of the paper trail I had so carefully assembled. To avoid criminal prosecution, which Marcus used as leverage, Alex agreed to a settlement that was utterly devastating for him. He had to sign everything back over to me. The fraudulent quitclaim deed was voided, and the house was put solely in my name. To repay the money he had stolen from the Hellock and the equity cash-out, his entire brokerage account and his $401k were liquidated and transferred to me. He was left with nothing but his personal savings and a mountain of legal bills. Ryan, to save his own career and avoid being named as a co-conspirator, testified against Alex, detailing how Alex had assured him that I had consented to all the transactions. Their friendship, like everything else in Alex's life, was just another disposable asset. The day Alex came to get his things was anticlimactic. A sheriff's deputy stood by silently as he packed his clothes and personal effects into boxes. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. The power dynamic had been completely inverted. In this house, my house, he was now the intruder, the trespasser. He had lost all control. As he walked out the front door for the last time, he finally turned to me. There was no apology, only bitter resentment in his eyes. "I hope you're happy, Brittany," he sneered. "I am," I said, and the surprising thing was it was true. The silence in the house after he left was profound. For the first few days it felt cavernous and lonely. Every room held a memory of the life I thought I had. But slowly, I began to reclaim the space. I painted the living room a shade of blue he would have hated. I sold the heavy, dark furniture he had picked out and bought pieces that were lighter, more comfortable, more me. I even adopted a clumsy, lovable golden retriever puppy from a local shelter, the dog we were always going to get one day. His name is Winston, and he now fills the house with a joyful, chaotic energy that is entirely my own. My job, the very thing Alex had belittled, became my salvation. The skills it gave me, patience, attention to detail, and an unwavering belief in the power of evidence, were the tools I used to dismantle his deception and rebuild my life. I no longer just record other people's stories. I have my own, one of betrayal, but also one of resilience. Jessica came over a few months later with a bottle of champagne. We sat on my new couch, looking out at the backyard where the party had happened. "It seemed like a lifetime ago, to the official record," she said, raising her glass, "and to staying in my lane." I replied, clinking my glass against hers with a smile. The house is no longer a symbol of a suburban dream I shared with someone else. It's my sanctuary. It's the foundation upon which I am building a new life, a life where I am the sole author of my own story. Every document is authentic, every decision is mine, and for the first time in a long time, the signature at the bottom of the page is bold, clear, and unmistakably my own.